back to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Today, Sherry Schmidt, the owner of Form and Function, is with us. With 20 years experience in the industry, Sherry offers both one-stop residential design as well as commercial design services. And it's those commercial design services that we're going to sort of focus on today. You know, because we haven't had many conversations with commercial designers over the years. And I know that you as an audience, you are doing all disciplines, residential, hospitality, commercial, sustainable, design, build, vegan, all the disciplines. But it seems that residential designers typically are more apt to ask to be on the show. I don't know why that is, but if you are in one of these other disciplines and you're thinking, maybe I'm not interested, well, I am. I just want you to know. And here's the thing. There's a form on my website where you can go and fill it out and pitch yourself to be on the show. And I can tell you the bar is high, but it's not unattainable, right? A few simple things you have to do. You have to be able to teach us something valuable, right? You have to tell me why and how you come to know this information, right? Do you know it from your experience, whether that's your experience in formal education or the School of Hard Knocks or, many years in the industry? You have to be able to tell me how you put it into action. You need to tell me the results that you get by doing the things that you want to teach us. And you have to explain to me what results the listeners can expect to get if they take your advice. So it's not a big mystery. It's easy to do. All right. Now, today, Sherry is sharing her experience, her tips and tactics for success in commercial design, from the meet and greet right down to closing the deal. So excited to share this with you today. Enjoy. Hey, Sherry, thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hello. How are you, Luann? It's nice to be here.
I'm glad to have you here, Sherry. And what's funny is you don't know I'm going to say this, but I'm going to say this. And if you don't like it, we can edit it out. How's that?
That's fine. Just go with it.
That's it. It's interesting because we were just chatting off air, and you just shared with me that you invested in yourself by taking a course that I didn't really get all the details of it, but you were describing to me that it was the result of taking the course is that it helped you develop a pitch and a positioning for media. And you use that when you emailed me to be on the podcast, and you just were telling me briefly how you are using it and you've pitched yourself to be on your local TV media and it's working. And I just was like, literally, we just finished with that before. I'm like, okay, ready to go on air. And I'm just sitting with it. And I just love so much about it, and it's nothing that we're going to talk about on the show today, but I want to just give you the high five on this.
Thank you.
Yeah. Number one, I want to say I love that you invested in yourself. Like, I love that you said, I could probably do this. I'm a smart lady. I could figure it out, but why don't I spend a week with an expert company to have them really teach it to me? And I love that you actually took what you learned and put it into action, because so often we go and we do invest in ourselves, whether it's online or in-person courses or books or whatever, or even listening to the podcast, and we think, I'm going to do that. I'm really going to do it. And then
I'm going to do it.
Yes, it never happens, right? So I just wanted to say, high five to you for that. I don't require a major formal pitch. You did give me a really good one.
Thank
For
you.
me, yeah, you did. And for me, it's all about if you can help me understand what you're going to teach my audience and why you're the one to teach it. It's sort of you have me at hello type of a moment,
Mm-hmm.
but you did craft a very nice one, and I congratulate you on taking the time and the money for yourself and then actually executing on it. So high five, lady.
Thank you. I'm a super big believer, and you can hear something, the same thing 1,000 times, and until you hear it the way that it's going to resonate and stick in your brain,
Mm-hmm.
that's that pivotal moment. That's the magic moment that changes everything. And with this class I took, they call it a simple structure story. They've been in media forever, so I know we're not going to focus on that today, but wow, what an amazing class. And I'm so happy I did it. I'd be happy to share with your listeners what it is. So
Great. Terrific. So maybe what we'll do is we'll put it in the show notes. But, it is just, the thing is to know that regardless of how many years we're in business, regardless of what our experience and our expertise is, that when we really want to crunch the, A to Z, all the steps in between, why not go and have someone else teach it to us? So I love that you did it.
thank
Now,
you.
you're welcome. Now, today we are going to talk about what to expect in commercial design because
That's right.
this is another area of your expertise. And what I loved about it was when I looked at it, not only was it very thought out, what you sent to me, but legitimately I said, not for nothing, but we don't have a lot of conversations on the back end business end of commercial design. I just think I have a theory on it is that so much of the commercial design, and I could be completely wrong, by the way, you'll maybe tell me, but I just feel like so much of the commercial design is often a bigger firm, whether that bigger firm is 8 people or 20 people or 300 people. And I feel like the principles of the bigger firms, they're just too busy running and gunning, let alone sit around and trying to figure out a better way to do the thing. So I love that you have this expertise because I know that there's designers out there that are going to benefit from it.
Awesome. Yeah. And so I had the same thought process. And a lot of my competitors are big firms. They're 100 employee
Right.
firms. They're
Yeah.
25 employee firms. And here we are, this small and mighty form and function. And we've procured projects as large as a $30 million corporate office build out,
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to teach the steps that have set me apart. Why would they hire us? Why would they hire us instead of Space or MBS or whoever your competitor is locally? That what makes us the confident person that they're going to hire?
Right.
So that's what we're going to talk about.
I love it. So
Yeah.
how do we what's the starting point? So so maybe you're a firm of 3, 5, 7, 8, right? That's still a relatively small firm, especially to your point of going in and competing for projects and especially at that size with firms that are in the 20s, 50s, 100s. So where do we start? What are the first things to be thinking about?
Well, today I'm just going to talk about how to prepare for the interview. I want to talk about the intake meeting and what you can do and the preparation for that. And then the steps of building the design, how you can do it efficiently and streamline your process to do the design. Creating the presentation and actually presenting and who your audience is going to be. We're going to talk a little bit about pricing and ordering and then the installation process as well.
Okay. So that's a lot. See, I told you she did a good pitch, you guys. She told me all that.
I love forecasting. You're going to hear that word a lot today.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So what's the first thing? We got to prepare and do some research. Where are we at?
So you get the interview, right? And the interview process is different than the intake meeting. A lot of times the interview is you're going in, they've called you up or reached out via email and said, hey, we have this project and we want you to come and take a look at it. And so, great. Just be prepared for that interview, and you can prepare yourself by doing first research on the business. I know it sounds remedial, But a lot of this, like, I even have to remind myself after how many years doing it, right? So, know the business, know who they are, know their reach, know their history, and that'll allow you to formulate a list of questions that you're going to want to know for their branding and their specialty, in the future. Another thing that I prepare with for the interview, I have a portfolio ready to go. Everything is digital. So I make sure that on like my Instagram, or I have a separate slideshow on my computer that I bring with me, that I can pull it up, or my iPad, whatever, and just say, these are some projects that I've done. Am I going to show them a closet remodel for an engineering firm? Probably not. So I always show the projects and the afters of what I've done, and we can talk a little bit about the sizes. And of course, when you're showing your portfolio, it's like, we know that this isn't going to be verbatim exactly like this. This is going to be more tailored to your brand. But have that ready. And then I always accidentally throw in a little bit of residential, because you never know who you're talking to, right? The CEO of a company.
So let me just,
you gotta put a little high end on
right.
that.
So I just want to stop you here, because there's a couple of good things in here. First of all, even to go back to your first point, to prepare by doing some research on the business. Now, and I don't think after I heard you, I didn't set it up properly. We're talking about, we're taking this from, we have the opportunity. We're not taking this on, we're starting with marketing and trying to attract the opportunity. So we have the opportunity. And I'm with you. I really want to just stress this. Prepare by doing some research on the potential company, the company that is giving you the opportunity. And you said, what do they do? Their company history. What is their reach? Look at their social. Look at all of their things. Because what's so funny is, you said it sounds a little remedial maybe, but I'm going to tell you what. In the last 6 months, I have probably interviewed no less than 15 people to potentially hire them at WindowWorks and Luann Niagara Inc. And there was not 2 people that I said, so tell me, what do you know about WindowWorks, or tell me what you know about Luann Niagara Inc., that answered the question properly. And they're not
just joking.
Yeah, no. And I'm just like, this is not the trick question. This is the first question, because this is the easiest question. I have websites that literally answer the question for you. And it's so hard for me to come back from that. I am like, okay, so first question, I'm like sort of out. I'm done. And so I know that if somebody, that's interviewing somebody for a job. If I'm interviewing somebody to be the possible designer for maybe a multi-hundreds of thousands, multi-million-dollar project, and you don't come in and know something about my business, I'm a little like, I'm out, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I go back to one of my first interviews as a commercial, in the commercial world, and it was for an engineering firm, and they were vetting at least 2 or 3 other interior designers. They told me they were. So I walked in, and I had my little portfolio and everything, and dressed in a suit. And Luann, they sat me in the front of a big office, and they had 10 people from the company. They had the CEO on a Skype, who was in another country, probably on some fancy boat. And they had like the engineer, the head of engineering, the vice president, one of the secretaries, the facilities manager, blah, 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 blah. And talk about on the spot. You go in and you are being interviewed. I mean, this is like a little bit more than Designer's Challenge, I feel like. You want to be totally prepared with your process, how you work, have the confidence, have your 30-second commercial, blah, 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 blah. And so for me, and always bring a lot of business cards too, because you never know if you're going to be with 3 people or if you're going to be with 15.
Wow.
I mean, I've seen a lot of different things, like anyways, I could go on and on with stories, but my 30-second commercial is, we are not a company with territory restrictions. So meaning I can get your product, I can get your project done without having to sell so much steel case or having to sell so much of, Howard Miller or whatever furniture line I carry. We're a boutique design firm. Now, if you want Steelcase, I have relationships with MBS because I believe in collaboration versus competition. I can go over there and they can help us. Eric can help us. Or I can go to Space and get Howard Miller. So I know my products enough, and I know that I can get these projects done on time, in budget, and help them to be customer and brand focused at the same time.
So you gotta school me a little here. What does that mean? I'm not following. It's the first time I'm hearing this type of language. So territory restrictions, and are you saying CLKs? Like, this is all over my head.
Sorry, what's a CLK?
Did you say that? Did you say territory restrictions?
Oh, I don't have any territory restrictions. So first of all, like,
that means.
As far as products, as far as where I can go to get products. So like
some commercial firms have this.
Oh yeah, I mean a lot of firms. If you're a salesperson at a commercial firm, you're going to be told that you have to sell within their product line, which is, EF contract or Target carpet or whatever, for the flooring. You get these options, right?
No, see, I didn't know that. So what you're saying is if your competition happens to be a commercial design firm that maybe has 100 employees, it's like one of the big guys, then when you as the design team within that firm go to design the project, you have to buy carpet from certain 2 or 3 vendors. You have to buy office and desks and so forth from certain 2 or 3 vendors.
Oh my God, we could do a whole show on that sometimes, but a lot of times, like what I'm saying for our boutique firm, I can bend the rules and not go through their contracts. But now there's sometimes that you'll get.
Oh wait, the company's contracts.
That has a national contract with Steelcase. Nope, the company. That's what sets me apart from Space. Okay, so let's say Space is a design firm here, and they are. They have over 100 employees. They have a contract with Howard Miller. They have to sell so much Howard Miller a year to keep their contract with them, right? To be able to sell that product.
Understood.
Well, they're getting government work, so they're easily able to sell $1 million in Howard Miller, right?
Okay, so it's like the opening minimums. It's like the minimums that you might have at a residential firm with, whoever. I don't know the names. Let's call it, Century Furniture, right? Like Century, right? So, but that happens in commercial also. That makes total logical sense. Okay.
That happens in commercial, so that's where, as a smaller firm, boutique, we don't have the restrictions of product. Okay. So I say territory, meaning we can go wherever in the United States and get whatever we want. I mean, it doesn't matter. We just want to make it happen for you.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry I was so dense on that.
No, that's fine.
I just didn't get the connection.
When you do this for so many years, it's like, it's just second nature. But also I follow the same process, and I try and follow these steps every job I do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So here's where we're at. We have the opportunity. We prepare. We learn about the company as much as we can. And I could see this. The more you know, the more, suits that are looking at you, men and women in those suits. It's not relevant. It's the same difference is that you can make conversation. You can answer questions because you're not like, I don't know what your company is and what you do, because that's obnoxious. Okay. And then you're saying you have your portfolio ready to swipe through and show them some before and afters. Mm-hmm. I love the idea that you accidentally have some residential space in there. Makes total sense.
Oops, forgot about that.
Yeah, plant the seed that this is how fabulous we do this too. You're saying bring a lot of business cards because you might be presenting to 3 people or 20 people, okay? Mm-hmm. And your 30-second commercial. And that's where we're just on. Your part of your 30-second commercial is talking about how you're a boutique firm and that you have the artistic and creative liberty to design and specify what's appropriate for them and not what some other firm has to fulfill a contract with.
Right.
Okay. I love it. All right. Now, what happens next? So
well, then you're still in the interview, right?
Yes. Oh yeah, we're still in the interview.
Let's say I'm sitting at KUKA Engineering and whatever, and I've got all these people. I have a list of questions, and I can start to ask these questions, which is going to be part of my intake later, right? But it's a good time to ask if they have allowances on products. Do they have their own contractors, or do they need referrals? Who the decision maker is, who is making the final decisions. Is it the facilities manager? Of course, it's probably the CEO. It's got to filter through them. Who is that? Like, know your audience and get to know the company more, right? Mm-hmm. And then you can also talk about the project itself. Are they knocking down walls? Are they building from the ground up? Of course, that's going to come out in conversation. But during that process, do they have engineers? Do they need a lighting engineer? Do they need demo plans drawn up? Do they need this and that and that? We've gone in and done full demolition plans for our clients in the past, and it just makes it easier on them and the contractors, and we're able to kind of procure that. Even though I'm not a general contractor, I don't price out like one either. So, and then always ask for the budget. Always ask for the budget if you can. I'm looking for three things: scope, quality, and budget. We were talking about budget.
Oh, okay.
So if you can give me two of those, and one of them's not budget, we'll talk about the scope and the quality of your project, and then I can say, okay, well, are you comfortable with $200,000 to do this remodel? And then you'll know if you go. I always go like shoot for the moon, right? High. And immediately if they're not comfortable with a high number. And you can kind of start to, figure out their budget from there. And just that's how that conversation is started.
Okay. So, and the thing is, it occurs to me that, first of all, I love this list of questions. Mm-hmm. What I want to know is everything workable? Or are there some things that, like we say when we have all these conversations on the podcast about residential design and the process, that are red flags where you're saying, I'm not sure if this is a good fit. So are there questions, of course, individually firm to firm, that is doing this interview process with a commercial project, individually firm to firm, what is a good fit for you might not be a good fit for another commercial designer. But are there questions where if they're answered in a certain way that you're just in the general sense, this is something to think about, look out for, or probe further in? Do you know what I'm saying?
I think so. And let me see if I can answer that correctly. Like, I just feel like everything is teachable. I go into a project and I think I'm going to be the best fit. Period.
Okay. Like everything is workable. Everything is you'll get there.
Everything is workable.
Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of understanding what that is. So that's the reason for asking so many questions on the onset. Because, for example, as you said, do they need demo plans? What I think I heard you to understand I understood you to say is that you can get them done or they can get them done. But you need to know who it is, because if it's you, you've got to allow for that in your invoicing, in your proposal.
Exactly right. And sometimes they'll say, no, we have an architect to do that, or the general contractor is providing this. And it just, it's kind of it's a little bit more of an organic conversation. But these questions can be trained, and they, these lists of questions, they always are just on top of my mind because I'm used to working with these types of projects, right?
Right.
So I think if it's not a good fit, we know at the time of the proposal. So we're still in the interview. We're still in that initial, we haven't been hired yet.
Right.
Right?
Right. They're still comparing you to a couple of other firms.
Yep. So at the end of the interview, I always forecast a little bit, and I say, this is our design process. So if you hire us, our next steps will be, I'm going to go back to my studio and I'm going to come up with a design proposal. And once that's agreed upon for our time, then the magic happens. Then I start ordering samples. I start putting together my CAD plans and my SketchUp and my 3D walkthroughs and blah, 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 blah. And that's usually about, however long of a process, 3 weeks or however long it takes. And then after that, I'm going to invite you all to come into my studio, or if it's easier, I can bring the samples here. But I would like to have a television available or something that I can cast to, so we can go over like the HGTV moment. We're going to have all our samples out. We'll have like 2 or 3 vignettes of colors to choose from that are from the identifying, what we've identified in the intake meeting. And then we start just editing and the procurement process from there.
So, question for you. Different than residential design. It sounds like we're doing all the way through this presentation, this ultimate presentation meeting at no contract yet, at no price. This is all like, I'm still trying to get this job.
I'm still trying to get the job. Right. I haven't gone back and done the design proposal yet. I'm forecasting. Okay. I'm going to do a design proposal. You're going to accept it. And then I'm going to do the work. Okay. And we're going to do the presentation, and it's super fun. We're going to make it easy peasy on everybody, and that's it.
Okay. But right. From a technical standpoint, after you do this initial interview with all of the people, the next technical step is do you have to give them some sort of budget or proposal, and they accept that before you put together mood boards and samples? Like when do we do money and when do we do contract? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Contract and money we agree on.
Yes. When do we agree on that? When do we agree on that?
Right after the interview. I go back and I put together a contract. They sign it, and then I start the full intake meeting.
Okay. Because we're not doing all of that. We're not doing all of that intake and creating the TV projection, proposal and all that. And that's what I wanted to make sure. Okay.
No, that's hours of work just on the intake meeting on some of these projects.
That's what I thought.
I don't give them anything until I get something in a deposit or whatever.
Okay. So the fact of the matter is then this interview is crucial because this is your one shot, because they are having you with 2 or 3 other people, and they are deciding based on this one interview. Now, that doesn't mean they wouldn't call you back and say we had some follow-up questions, but typically it's the way you show up for this interview prepared versus how 2 or 3 other firms show up prepared. And then they're going to make a decision and say, okay, go with Sherry's company.
Exactly. And you don't want to. So I just had a really fun one this month. I went to an interview at a hotel a couple hours north of me. And, I've wanted to get into hospitality. So in the meantime, I've been collecting names and numbers of reps, which we'll talk about in a little bit, of who can help me procure a hotel project properly. Right. And I went in the interview, came back, did my proposal. They never signed it. They said, and then 3 months later, they said they went with another design team out of Texas, right? This big firm. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Well, this month they called me up and said, Sherry, we need you. And I hate to swallow my tongue, but I wish I could read you the email. Whatever it was hilarious. And it was the president of the hotel. And she's like, I wish we would have hired you in the beginning. I don't know if you want to help me, but please help me because these people aren't responding. I can't get anything done. So I must have made enough of an impact during that interview to show my expertise, to show how I can procure a project, how I work, blah, 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 blah. She came back. Awesome.
That's great. That's great.
So excited.
Yes, to your point, there was an impression made, and maybe it was by committee and 3 to 2, and they went with the bigger firm. And you can hear somebody saying, "We need the resources of a bigger firm," yada yada. But then they just lost the one-on-one attention to customer service with the bigger firm. It sounds like, right?
It's so true.
So now that brings to mind really understanding not only how critical it is to understand who you are interviewing with, but who are you interviewing against, right? So and the thing is, I guess what I'm wondering is in this day and age, like all the years I ran WindowWorks, right? And it's like I know who my exact competition was. It was, the one guy up the road, la 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 la, and I literally knew what their strengths were and what their weaknesses were. And so when I was in situations where I thought I was, I didn't even have to know if I was competing against any one of them in particular. I just felt like sometimes you're in the sales process and you just know you're not the only one, that there's other people they're talking to. And of course, I would think in your situation, you're never the only one. Who's going to award projects of this size without interviewing? That just is crazy pants, right? Unless you're an actual repeat, design project for the same client at this level. But the thing is, I knew that I knew their strengths and weaknesses, and it wasn't like and as a matter of fact, I was just training 2 new salespeople yesterday, and I said, we don't talk about what the other person can't do. We just talk about what we do that we know they can't do, like what we provide. So in this day and age, though, where like that, here's somebody north of Michigan hires a Texas firm. How do you prepare yourself against who they might be potentially hiring?
Well, I think we kind of touched on that, and that's just in that initial, or you mean during the the actual design process?
No, during the interview. We're still trying to get the job. So,
well, just know who you are, know your differences, have that 30-second commercial ready to rock and roll. And I think knowing all of your products like the back of your hand. When I hire employees, I make them in their downtime, Luann. I'm like, if you're bored, you should never be bored.
Right.
You should be looking at all of our catalogs, get to know the prices, get to know what's in them, get to know the look. I want to know exactly where to pull it from. And then also, we're a small firm. We have relationships with our reps, and we use them. And that's something I never knew to do when I was just doing residential years ago for 14 years. Now I've been commercial and residential for 10 years or something. I don't know. So I never knew to do that, but the lady that I bought my business from did, and she built relationships with Wayne from EF Contract and so Steve Gotbrecht. And I mean, so I talk to my clients about this. How do you do a big job? Well, I lean on my reps. I can see what tile I want to put in that bathroom and call up Wayne and say, hey, or Bill, it doesn't matter who, hey, I need this tile. I need this square footage. I need this timeline and this price. What you got? And they send me stuff. It's like magic. And it makes it so easy. And all of your reps will help you. Right. You just got to talk to them and use them as a resource. And I use them religiously. I call them up, and I've got great relationships. Hey, Sherry, what's going on? What do you need? What do you need?
And so
it's awesome.
Are you saying in contrast, right? So because I'm hearing the answer to my question lies in when we don't know who we're going up against, we have to really know what our particular firm's strengths are so that we can lean on them and just express them. And so are you, in calling this out as one of the things to say, is it more uncommon for the bigger firms to not, like, instead of relying on reps and having those relationships, not that they don't have them, but they're just going to go to their huge resource library and they're going to pick a tile and they're going to have no idea if it's in stock. They're no idea if it's going to be on time or in budget or blah, blah, blah. And whereas you are leaning on that professional relationship, because obviously if you call Bill or whatever his name is, he wants to sell that too. like he wants to sell this tile for a 20-foot, 20-story building, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, I can imagine if I am one of 100 employees in a commercial firm, maybe my boss makes sure I have to check to see if it's in stock and can be available, but I'm probably doing it through online services. I'm not doing it through a phone call with a person.
Right. And so check this little caveat out. In commercial, your companies protect you and they protect your pricing. And a lot of times, if like if I specify a job, but I don't get to buy the product, which is another thing that we do, we can create the FF&E bid package. We don't always get to buy the product and sell it.
Right.
Maybe NBS is going to sell it and do the procurement process. We don't always get that portion, but we got the design. Well, my reps see that it's originally my product, so they throw in a little extra on the top to protect that pricing, and then I get a magic check in the mail.
Wow.
It's awesome.
Nice.
Look at those industry brokerages.
That's awesome. That's good. You know what I mean? That is the relationship, being reciprocal. Yeah. That's interesting. Okay, so I think the biggest takeaway so far in our conversation is do not underestimate the interview. That It's all about the interview, and the rest of it, if you get past the interview process, is important because now you have to execute on what you said you could do. But if we can't do a proper, wow them, woo them interview, we're just wasting our time. Right.
Right. And that interview needs to be confident. And that's what I can help teach people too. That's what I've taught my girls, and it's amazing the transformation that they get. So
right. So we're gonna talk about that too, because you have a proven sales process that you teach. You've taught it, like you just said, to your employees, and now you're breaking out and teaching it to your colleague interior designer. So I love that.
Yes.
Now, before we get to that, so the next thing is, you're going to do a very detailed intake. You sort of went through it. Do they have their own contractors? Do they need referrals? Who are the decision makers? Who's going to be involved in the process, blah, blah, blah. Are they knocking down walls? Do they know timeline? Do they know budget? So budget. Let's just go there.
But in the intake meeting, real quick, I also I give them a facility planning questionnaire that I've come up with.
Okay.
And it talks about the spatial analysis of this, if you will, like who's going to be sitting next to who? Where's accounting? Where's what's the relationship of the departments, and how can we make it better so that they have a workflow environment that makes better sense, right? Things like that. We talk about, there's questions, describe what you best like about your current facility and what you would like to change. And what kind of, how will the facility be used? What's the activity level? High, medium? Who's going to be using it? And so I have all of our commercial clients fill out this additional questionnaire after I've gotten the project, and that's part of that intake as well. So
okay.
And it just learns about their building, or branding and things like that, and shows that we're branding and consumer driven as well. With this day and age, I mean, we've all heard the term resumercial, maybe?
Yes, all of a sudden.
That's a fun one. Thank you, Google Offices, for making the workplace so bougie. I feel like home, which I love. I mean, I'm not complaining. I've been in facilities that are like horrendous, and I'm like, hard no, I don't want to work there ever.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry, I squirreled, but what was your...
No. I that's great. I love it. And I love the detail. And any designer listening that has gotten their process even somewhat organized probably has a similar Q&A process for their residential work. And you're just saying, don't skip that just because you're doing commercial. You need to know, just like a residential designer needs to know, do we have 3 kids and is everybody on a lacrosse team and a basketball team and a swim team? Right. Or are they all dancers and musicians, or there's no kids and we have 19 puppies, right? Like how does
to entertain for the whole theater group?
Right. Like how does this house need to function? So the same applies here. And, so the thing is, so that's your so now you've gotten the project, you've had this intake meeting, you go through all of that, and now I guess, are you starting to take measurements, or do you assume in this kind of realm there's always blueprints that you go by? Like what is that? That seems like a bear.
There's not always blueprints. So I did a spa, right? And we wanted to get them in and get the blueprints done right away. So the architect and myself drew up the blueprints for it. So have a laser. These places are bigger than you think.
Yes.
Get a laser, invest in a $200 piece of equipment, and a 30-foot tape measure, because you never know when you're going to have to take all these big measurements. But again, it sounds really simple, but there's sometimes, you forget to grab that laser and you need it. Or you obtain the architect plan and you can convert it to CAD, and that's, of course, easier. But even if I have a CAD, like architectural draft, 3D blueprint, whatever, I always go back and double check those measurements. Always, because something's off on them. Take really, really good pictures. And if you think that you're taking good pictures, take them better. I like to talk to people, and I can't tell you how many times I'm like, oh, shoot, I forgot to take that corner.
Right.
And I need it, for like whatever. So take good pictures. I've even taken videos and just walked in a circle on my phone, and that helps. Ask the people during that intake meeting and the measuring process for a moment that they can go and do whatever you want, so that you can have complete attention to detail when you're measuring the space, like if you don't have a blueprint or when you're taking those notes. And then after you're done with that intake meeting, forecast what's next. So, okay, now we've gotten the details of the plan. Next, and I always reiterate that forecast. Next, what we're going to do is go back and put our samples together. Then we're going to have a presentation. Set the date for the presentation at the intake meeting, if at all possible, because people are busy. We're all business owners. We're all, doing our thing, and it's a busy world. Set that presentation date and give yourself a deadline. I always do that, and make it a realistic deadline.
Right.
And then you come back to the studio and you start building the design. Like I said, you use your reps. I'll know most of us in design, a lot of us anyways, after years, you're like, okay, I know exactly what I want to do. Let's do this, and order the samples, and you order 3 or 4 vignettes. I don't really do mood boards anymore. I've done them a few times. I know that's probably bad and faux pas, but I just do like my big conference table, and I have like 3 vignettes set out, and we have like project drawers that we keep them in. And then I do Google presentations, and I have my presentation right there. I cast it on a big screen TV in the conference room. And always, once they're in the presentation, forecast what's happening. Okay, so first we're going to go over what you have and what you wanted, and then some inspiration, what your brand is. Then we're going to go over the floor plans, the furniture, and then at the end we're going to talk about these pretty vignettes and the colors, and I have 3 of them for you to choose from. And if you skip that part, I have literally had people from a job come in, and there was like 5 or 6 of them packed in the conference room and stuff, and I skipped it.
Just by accident.
Alyssa was interrupting the whole time. Well, aren't we going to talk about the colors? And I'm like, yeah, we're going to do that. I'm like, oops, I forgot to forecast. Don't forget to forecast, because that sets the tone. Right. It tells them, don't ask, we're going to do this first, and we'll get to that later.
I see. What you're saying is next steps. You're going to, every time you start the meeting, you tell them all the things that you're going to cover in the meeting, so they don't keep interrupting you, and they know that eventually step 5 is we're going to talk about the colors.
Yep, we're going to get there. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly right.
Smart.
So.
Well, that's how you're the leader in the room. That's really what you're saying. Yep. You're in what you're saying. Like, it's so funny because sometimes on the podcast, the guest like yourself will say, "Be the leader in the room," and you're taking it from the opposite. This is what you have to do, and the result is you're the leader in the meeting. You're the leader in the room, and I love that.
Yeah, and so in commercial, it might feel like awkward sometimes. So I just went up we're working on a student housing facility at Kirtland College. And anyways, I walk into the presentation, and I didn't know what to expect. It was the first time going to a presentation with these guys, but I had met them before. So there's Ron, the facilities manager, there's the CEO, and then there's 2 engineers, a mechanical and electrical. There is a janitor guy and like 2 other people in the meeting. Oh, the GC, anyways, somebody else. And they're all, the architect. And they're all there together. And so we came in and we got our pretty little samples in our bags, you know, and like, hey, like all men. Don't mind us.
Right.
So we just like set up our little vignette, just like we would do here in our own studio. We set up the vignette, but then we sit and listen, and these architects and the engineers, they're talking blah, 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 field stuff, right? Like laundry list of this engineering talk that's kind of boring, like how deep they can dig a hole or whatever it is. And so they don't even want to be there for over an hour. By the time it's our turn to talk, they're like, oh, colors. We don't need to hear this. You know what I mean? Right. And so that's our time to shine again. That's how I look at that situation, because we've come so prepared. We come prepared with BIFMA standards on furniture. So if there's any question why this furniture, we talk about the commercial ratings that it carries, and we know our stuff, and we've already done our homework, and we have presentation notes right at the bottom of our presentation that we can see. We know the lumens. We know the Kelvin temperatures of the products that we're showing them, and we know that the LED mirrors, they're going to question the lifespan. So we've already done that research, and look, this is warranted for so many years, and it has 50,000 hours of life, or 200,000 hours, or whatever it is. And that's how all of a sudden, at the end of our part of this presentation of engineers, architects, blah, 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 the lighting engineer is like, I don't know what exterior light to do. Let's ask Sherry. Suddenly I've got the lead in the room. Whatever decision is going to be made, it's going to look good, and it's going to be rated because we know our stuff. We've studied it. And so they're suddenly like turning the attention and actually having a really nice conversation. And that presentation went from, 10, 15 minutes from what I thought I was going to have as a platform to well over half an hour.
Okay. Well, it's about being prepared, to your point. You can't just do the smoke and mirrors dance. We have to actually know what we're talking about. I mean, the stakes are high here. And the truth is, look, I've been in similar situations at much less higher stakes, right? But, going into, I can picture a dozen times, more than a dozen times, going into a meeting with the designer, and the GC is there, and the electrician is there, and the mill worker is there. And you're right. It's no, on one hand, none of them care about the window treatments. They think it's like just the pretty, but at the same time, the GC and the electrician are not really talking things that make sense when it comes to the motorization that I know the designer wants to do. Right. And so it's there's a moment where you have to, okay, I need to speak here, and you're going to need to hear me. But if you don't come out with, something credible, intelligent, that makes sense, you lose it in the set before you even got it. You know what I mean? Like you lose that moment. And when you do know your stuff, and you do come out with something that makes sense and impacts actually the decisions they're making, now you do get that moment where they look at you and say, well, I don't know, ask her. It's like, okay.
And you know what? A silly little alpha, like confidence boosting trick that I use, because I'm like super short. I'm like 5 foot tall. I like so funny. I do. I look to remain an alpha in a conversation.
That's got to be hard,
their
actually.
Eyebrows, their eyebrows to their forehead, to like the middle of their forehead. Don't look them straight in the eye. Look them right above their eyes.
Yes.
It's
100%.
A trick.
Well, you know what it is?
And all of a sudden, like their facial expressions change.
It's a body language thing. Nancy Ganselkaufer has taught that. It's the power, gaze is the triangle from the forehead to the eyes, as opposed to the more personal social gaze is from the eyes to the triangle to the nose. Right. And if you look at the other, you look at the top one, it's this subtle, weird, nudgy thing that sometimes does create a subtle difference in the dynamic of the people that you're dealing with. And Nancy has spoken about that several times. I've heard her speak about that.
I think I've heard her speak about that too. I love Nancy.
Yeah. Well, and she's short too, like you.
She came right up to me at the live show, and we just hit it off right away.
At live, yeah.
She was sitting with her son, Caden.
Oh my God, that's so crazy.
That's awesome.
Feels like a minute ago, and it was like 3 years ago now, right? When we were all in New Jersey for that.
Yeah, and as it turned out, my best friend lived in Spring Hill, New Jersey, so I doubled up on that trip from Michigan.
Good for you. Good for you. Oh, that's nice to know. I'm glad
you got to collect people wherever you go, right?
That's it. That's the truth.
Build your internal network.
Exactly. So, okay. And so then the final thing is, look, the thing is there's a lot here, right? And you have to keep delivering on the promise. And now that you've done the design, now you have to do all the procurement and the ordering and, following through with the installation. But one of the things, one of my chairman of the boards, shout out and hello to Shira. Shira is a commercial designer, and she handles big projects like this. And she's, we feel like Shira's a big firm because she runs an 8-person firm, but, she's not a 200-person firm. And I'm always amazed at the type of projects that she has going on, multiple at the same time, that she's managing, honestly, with 8 people. It's pretty remarkable. And the level of the budgets that she's dealing with. And I know that one of the things that she's consistently needing to keep front of mind for her team is the fine line between designing because it looks beautiful, but designing that's beautiful, that fits the budget. Because at this level, you're not just looking at a partner, a couple, a single person and saying, I know you said, $100,000, but maybe 125 and we can add these things, right? It's a whole different animal. And so as you're going through your design process, what mechanisms do you have in place or what kinds of things do you suggest that people watch out for in keeping with, because once the budget's set, it's a budget.
Well, and sometimes clients will bend their budget, but a lot of times with commercial, they want to get it done. It depends on how, with commercial it's just, how do I say, it's not as personal. It is and it isn't. It's like your business or your college or whatever, and you want to evoke this feeling and have a beautiful space. But sometimes, like the Kirtland student housing right now, we are over $1 million over budget.
Oh, and they're approving it. They're just letting it go.
No, we're going back and value engineering, and then they'll probably approve it for $500,000 over.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
But we've had to value engineer a few items, and that's fine. So I always come prepared with overcoming those obstacles. Like, how can I value engineer and still get the look for less, and still hopefully be able to make the sale, because that's, if you get the product and the design, heck yeah, you get your percentage or whatever. So I become prepared. I come, talk to the reps again, circle back, sometimes you start the process over, or I'll go into it and say, hey, this is within your budget. This is the next step up. This is amazing. What do you want?
I get that, but you can't, I just think from a logical standpoint and from what I've learned, is you can't consistently do that in commercial, because then you're going to spend your time resourcing only because you source too high to begin with, right? So maybe here and there you might try and nudge a client to reach for something to really definitely dramatically improve the overall, the result, right?
Right.
But if you're just like, well, this is beautiful for every category or for multiple categories, all you're going to do is spin your wheels and resource on a project that you've already committed to a certain design fee for, right?
Right. Yeah. So the budget is, so getting those allowances or the budget that's allowed for certain product or lighting, and then knowing kind of your client. You got to know who you're dealing with, right? in situations, every situation's different, but I always say there are no problems. There's only solutions.
Right.
So.
Right. I'm more from the standpoint from a designer who's less experienced and, just says, but, this would be amazing. And then you go to propose it and you propose it and propose it. And, you're just looking and saying, well, that's awesome because this should have spent 4 hours sourcing and now it's 12 because we've proposed 3 different things that are completely out of whack.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what I've learned is a sort of a goalpost to look for is we want to be respectful.
You have to be malleable a little bit in this industry, just like anything, right? So, but with pricing, we talk about residential pricing and the margins, and usually between 80 and 100 or 120% margin, roughly.
Well, I would love it if the designers I spoke to were doing that.
Well, if you're not designers, then call me and I'll tell you why.
So, but to your point though, commercial, the margin is much tighter.
You're lucky if you get 15 to 25, but you got to consider in commercial, like on a school project or something, you might be ordering 30 workstations.
Right.
You have one purchase order.
Right.
How beautiful is that?
Right. I know. Shira said to me, Lou, I'm going to order 400 of these. I'm like, oh, okay, right. So we don't have to mark it up as much. Okay, I got it.
Yeah. You're ordering bigger quantities, and it's pretty cool. And and then also your competitor, that comes back to knowing who your competition is. Your competitor might have these big breaks on steel case furniture. So you have to have a product like AIS or NWork or whoever else that is going to compete with this national level of pricing on steel case furnaces, right?
Okay.
And you got to know too that they're only charging 15% or 20%. And then I figure my overhead is, I have 2,000 square foot little studio. They have a big building and a lot of mouths to feed.
Yeah, no, it's true.
If I'm willing, I've walked away from some projects because I'm like, this is too much of a hassle. I'll let somebody else do it. I don't even want to bid it.
Right.
And, but then there's other projects where I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So as part of that in commercial, of course, you got to know who's going to be able to warehouse this, receive it, inspect it, and then also put it together properly.
Oh my
and in that, in that installation process, I always give the installers ahead of time, I try and make it as elementary as I can for these people because I can't always be on site, right? I try to be, but I can't always be there to direct traffic and point fingers like residential. I always try to be too. So I give them detailed, like this goes here and this goes, and this is the building. You're working with a 30,000 square foot building. You want it to be precise.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Are there firms that's what they do? Like the way in residential we have receivers that open and look at the furniture and make sure that it's beautiful and there's no puncture marks and everything, and then they will deliver it. Are there firms that specialize in receiving 400 desks and inspecting them and putting them together?
Generally, they're not inspected before they're delivered. I'll just say that. They're opened up the boxes on site, but they are received. And then, we have our punch list of items, always a punch list. Like, okay, what came in damaged? What hinges are missing? What it's the same thing as residential.
I just can't imagine it.
You don't love that stuff?
No.
It's like the accounting of interior design.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but obviously there are firms that specialize in it at this level, right? And that's part of this. It's not only researching the potential company that you are going to have an opportunity with, but it's researching the potential competitors that you have. It's understanding and researching your own resources. What are the minimums and the things that you can do or not do? Then it's researching the resources for receiving it, delivering it, putting it together, and then your own time and energy in this walkthrough and creating the punch list and all of the things. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. I would never want to do it. Like, you couldn't pay me to do it.
Really?
No.
And I love window treatments too, Luann. I am like the little window treatment queen up here. I don't know. I just like to maybe I just like to get my fingers in a little too much.
I don't know. Well, window treatments is as a pain in the neck as they are is a heck of a lot easier than this.
Oh my God. So yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I actually own 25 rooms of hotel shears because I botched the measure.
Oh, God.
I didn't have my fabricator go and remeasure, and you always learn. I learned the hard way.
What couldn't have been adjusted on that? Were they too long or too short?
No, it was the pin setting width.
You mean the
pins, the
distance in the pleats from pleat to pleat, and
Yeah.
in a hotel that mattered?
It did.
Oh, for crying out loud! That's ridiculous. I'm going to tell you what. There's a
I
lot of things that I would be
totally
okay with. That's
messed
ridiculous.
It up. I was probably talking when I made the measurement.
No, that's insanity.
Anyways, yeah. It mattered. They didn't fit the windows.
Okay, so that's a matter of...
They were made too short for
in
the windows. Too width. Yeah, too short in width.
Okay, so that actually isn't... Okay, it's different what you're saying. What they said to you was, we can't take them apart and replete them because the distance between the pleats will not work. That's
because the
different.
pin needles would have shown in the shears.
Oh, well, that's...
So we couldn't do it. Yeah, it was fine.
If you had called me, I would have told you, do one and see.
Yeah.
At 25 of them, I would have said do one and see.
But guess what? I just bought a new 100-year-old home.
Oh, and you need 25 sets of shears for it?
I am not kidding. This place has the biggest windows. I said, honey, we have shears for days.
Lunatic.
They're called gifts of the industry.
No. I mean, look, it's true that depending on the fabric, you probably could. You always could definitely see the holes, but you also always could definitely not, too. I'm telling you, in my experience.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate that. I'll keep that in mind next time.
Yeah. 25 of them, I would have done one. Unless I knew.
It was an owie.
Yeah. Oh, it was in Maui, no less. I definitely would have done one. Oh my goodness! All right. So here's the thing.
Some good. Yeah, go ahead.
So here's the thing. So you do also, we did connect on this other level that you are very intentional about the sales process, and you have created a lot of success in your business by, very much like myself, analyzing the sales process and really figuring out what are the steps in a successful sale? And to your point earlier, you've taught all the people on your team, and I know from your email to me that you've gone and given this presentation locally to organizations and stuff, and now you are making it available to your interior design colleagues. So tell us a little bit about this program that's coming up. I think it's in the fall of 2022, right?
Yeah, so we're still working on the URL, but it's called the Consumer-Centered Sales Method for Design Professionals, and it teaches what we just went through. How do you get through the greeting, the interview, the intake meeting, forecasting, the presentation, how do you price, and then going down to the installation. And it just gives like a roadmap, how to keep that conversation going and with confidence. And I got to tell you, I had a girl working for me, and she was 23 years old, fresh out of college. She worked for me for 3 years, and I put her through this sales training, and I watched her go from literally slouching down in her chair to there was one of our times we were role playing or something, and she hit the glass conference tabletop so hard. She was so mad. She ran out of the room, and I was like, well, she's
Well, I guess I broke
She might
her.
or might not come back. Like, are we done? And that was her moment. That was her magic moment that broke her. And that was that time that was so difficult and so hard. That was her breakthrough. And Luann, she went from being so unconfident to closing $60, $70, $80,000 jobs. She did an entire credit union with confidence.
Wow.
And just became this rock star.
Wow. That's awesome.
And I was so proud of her. She wrote almost $500,000.
Wow.
After taking that course.
Wow.
And in the first year. And I was just so extremely proud. She's gone on to another firm, and I know she walked in there with super confidence. And I love teaching. I taught in college before too. I just love watching people grow as individuals and as new and older, as experienced. So anyways, I'm going to be teaching this course, and I'm going to gear it towards all of these items. And if people are interested, we can go. I have info at formandfunctionbc.com on my website. That's our email. And if you email an inquiry, I will tell you all about the details of our week-long Zoom training.
I love it. I love it. So good. You know me. I love anything on sales.
Sales is a really ugly word. It's so ugly. It reminds me of like the car salesman.
I know, but that's a silly thing.
It's like calling like a blog is really ugly.
Yeah.
If you call it a trend, suddenly it's like, oh, it's pretty.
The trend is.
I hate saying sales. I feel like it's more relationship building. But
that's what good sales is, though.
Yeah.
I mean, the ideal of a sale is to create a win-win. That is it. The ideal of a sale isn't I get over on you. That's not the ideal. And anybody has a negative concept of sales is processing it that way, that I'm here in this space to try and get over on you and hoodwink you. How's that for an old-fashioned word? Hoodwink you into, what I want you to do, say, think, buy. And that's just not it. Sales is, I have something so amazing that I want to share with you because I firmly believe it's a solution for the thing that you're going through. And if it is that solution, then you need some of it. And here it is. I'm the one giving it to you. So
it's a total give, take.
Yes,
You're giving
100%.
them. You're giving something to them. You're helping them.
That's right. Well, and the thing is that you need to be able to your point, understand this, get that it is a process, that it can be process driven, that there are specific steps in a selling process that we all do. Look, when people don't believe me that we're selling all day long, I'm like, did you ever try and get your 3-year-old to take a nap? Like, come on. You're selling to your 3-year-old. You know what I'm saying? Like, you ever get your husband to try and go to Maui on vacation when he doesn't want to? You're selling to him all day long.
Right.
And so, you're what do you do? Oh, here's what's in it for you. When you get up from your nap, you're going to go see mom and you're going to have ice cream. Or like you're selling to them.
I know it. It's
you're
so true.
You're giving them all the reasons for them that the nap is good or the vacation in Maui is amazing.
Yes. Yes. Oh, Maui.
Love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much. So by the time this show airs, we likely will have the URL. But in the meantime, we will put the email link in the show notes so that you can reach out to Sherry. And I have to say, it's been fun. I'm sorry that it's been 3 years since we've seen each other in real life. But,
okay.
So glad to have you here. And I appreciate all the tips that you shared with us, Sherry.
Thank you so much. I had a blast talking with you.
Okay, so the takeaway, Sherry is very intentional throughout the sales process, right? You can see how the sales process for commercial design is different than residential, right? It's a meeting with suits, with a team that each person in their own way is regarding you through their personal lens, right? So instead of making a connection or attempting to make a connection with one person or a couple, like in residential, you have to connect with and impress several people. How do you do that? Well, according to Sherry, preparation is key. And I can see that she's probably very right about this. The initial interview step is your time to shine. And in fact, it might be your only time to shine, right? Fall on your face, no invite back. You know, like we said, you've got a desk full of suits looking at you, and they want to know, what have you done for me lately, right? So how do you shine? How do you prepare, right? And these are the things that I learned from Sherry. Know the company. Know the company that you are going to pitch the project for, right? Understand them, what they're about, who they are. Look at their past projects. Look and read as much as you can. Understand the players, if they've got, the team listed on the site, all the things. Then know the type of project it is, right? What are the goals that this particular company has for the project? And how can you speak to that? How can you see that your firm understands that? How can you show them that you get their vision, right? And then finally, it's know your competition. And knowing your competition means knowing their strengths and their gaps so that you can play in, out, around, and against them. Right? So, for example, the competition has 100 people. That means they have manpower. Well, you have hands-on because you're a team of 10. Nothing is overlooked. Nothing gets kicked down the block because every single person on your small team is on the project. Well, maybe they're a small team of 10. Maybe you're the 100. You have the resources and the depth with your team of 100 to handle multiple phases of the project at the same time for a quicker turnaround. One team is sourcing the lighting and plumbing while another is sourcing the exteriors and the others. I'm making all of that up. I have no idea if that's what the different teams do. Right? You get me, though, right? There are pros and cons for everything. The key is knowing who you're going against in these bigger projects so that you can speak to the benefits of your superpowers and possibly call out some of the cons of the other type of company. Now, I do not mean bad-mouthing. This is not what I'm saying, and that never has a place in professional dealings, because if you literally stand there and bad-mouth another company, you're the one that looks bad, period. Okay? All right, so I love the tips on this. I love the conversation on this. I think that lots of good takeaways, lots of things, and even for residential, right? Lots of advice. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Sherry's sales course. It's called the Consumer-Centered Sales Method for Design Professionals. This course covers everything that we discussed in this episode: the greeting, the interview, the intake meeting, forecasting, pricing, all of it. Sherry describes it as a roadmap on how to keep the conversation going throughout each step with confidence. Sounds like a nice opportunity to me, especially if you felt a connection to Sherry in listening to her today. If you're interested in joining this with her, send her an email at info@formandfunctionbc.com. Of course, we'll put that in the show notes as well. So thank you, Sherry, for coming today. Totally enjoyed listening and speaking with you about all of this little aspects of commercial design. Opened my eyes to a couple of things. I liked it. Thank you. And a reminder before I go about Inside Voice, Outside Voice. It's happening this Thursday, September 1st, 2022. Our topic this month is how to navigate economic changes, leading your company through the ups and downs in the economy, what to do, how to prepare, how to manage it successfully and profitably. I've been around the bush a few times, ladies and gents. I just want to tell you. And we're going to talk about best practices in, navigating what is ahead in the world. All right. The proceeds for this event this month will go to Adopt a School. We like this idea. With schools getting back into session now, with Lou University opening up September 15th, it seemed like a nice tie-in, and it is for sure a very terrific cause. So if you are interested in joining us this Thursday for a live event with me, InsideVoice.OutsideVoice.com. Keep in mind, these events are not recorded. They're not recorded and sent out. This is for us in real time to talk and to know that you're in a safe place. You can ask any question you want, and you don't have to worry about it getting, spread all over the internet. That's the whole point for Inside Outside Voice, right? Okay. Thank you tons for joining me today. I totally appreciate it. Thank you. I hope you have a great day. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of Luann Nigara, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or Luann University, go to luannnigara.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to windowworksnj.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.